So as you're coming to the mat, just like usual, take a second, drop in, start to become present. You can take a second in Savasana, corpse pose. Just let your hands rest out to the side. Close your eyes if it feels good. Start noticing the quality and depth of your breath. Try to relax a little bit more while you deepen the breath. Breath practice can be super important for opening up through the hips and relaxing through the traps, neck and shoulders, so just bring that. And as always, as we go through the poses, I encourage you to find any easy organic movement that feels good for you, so just try to listen to your body. Try to acknowledge all the sensations that we're going to have here today as self-care, and don't be overwhelmed by that. So we're not going to try to force into any of the poses, just listen to your threshold, find what feels good. And we're going to start by slowly drawing in that right knee toward the right shoulder. You can use your right hand to wrap around that knee or your right elbow even if it feels good. Leave your left arm out to the side and just start to rock gently, mindfully back and forth across the front of that right hip flexor. So this is a good place. Everybody's going to be a little bit different in the hips, so it's a good place to explore. So I like to draw little small circles with my right knee, just tucking in toward the right armpit. And then just opening up further to the right, back to the center. Just finding really small movements that start to massage the front of the right hip flexor. So take your time in that, be present. If you found something you like, maybe try something different. Just applying pressure gently. Remember to stay synced up with your breath. Always deepening your breath. Focus on the quality of your breathing. And then when you're ready, if it feels good, you can take your right hand to the outside of your right foot and just open up through that right hamstring. So the bottom of your right foot is facing the ceiling. Your left hand can stay out to the left if it feels good. Left foot, left leg are active, so I'm fully extended through that left knee. My left foot is dorsiflexed. And I'm just using my right hand to gently pull that right knee kind of toward the outside of the right armpit or wherever feels good for you. Just gently applying pressure there, starting to open up through that hip. When you're ready, you can gently, mindfully release that right leg, send it all the way out. We're going to do the same thing on the left. So draw your left knee in toward your chest. Use your left hand to bring that left knee toward the left armpit, toward the left shoulder. And just start exploring there, drawing small circles, rolling that hip open to the left, finding what feels good for your body. Starting with that gentle massage in the front of the hip flexors. So remember to keep deepening the breath, focus on the quality of the breath. Start giving your body signals that it's okay to relax these muscles. It's going to be a nice slow flow today, just to kind of break up some of that fascia that built up overnight and get you ready for movement for the day. So take your time, be gentle with your body, and listen to what it's telling you. when you're ready, you can take the left hand to the outside of that left foot, open up through the left hamstring. Bring your left heel toward the ceiling, and then you're just plugging down that left shoulder, kind of putting a little pressure on the foot, bringing that left knee toward the left armpit, outwardly, the outside of your left side body. So again, gentle pressure, no forcing. That right leg is still fully extended, right foot is active. Just noticing what you feel, beginning to open up through the hip. And if it feels good, if you want to, you can draw that other right knee in, bring that up for a double stirrup or happy baby posture. So you're bringing both knees toward both armpits or to the outside of the chest. Just applying gentle pressure. And then I like to rock back and forth a little bit. Just feels good on the low back, challenges the balance. Just find what feels good. And when you're ready, drop both feet to the mat. You're gonna walk your feet as wide as the mat. Let the knees fall in against each other. And then we're just gonna roll back and forth to the right and then to the left. Kind of making like a windshield wiper motion with the legs. And then walk your heels back up toward your hip bones. They don't have to be really tight toward your body, but just, you know, wherever is comfortable, feet flat on the ground. You're gonna take that left ankle over, cross it over the right knee, and just start to open up on that left hip. So if you wanna extend your left hand and press gently on the inside of your left thigh, just very gently, noticing your range, your threshold, acknowledging that you're not too aggressive. Just warming up for a little bit before we open up more through the hips. So if you're feeling good there, you can kick that right heel up and off the ground. Keep that right knee at a 90 degrees. Flex the right foot and interlace your fingertips behind the right thigh. And then you're just going to use your left elbow to press into that left thigh. Same thing you were doing pretty much, just opening up a little bit more through the left hip. Pull your fingers, your right thigh closer toward your face. Just stretch through that hip. Again, just find what feels good for you. And check in with your inner dialogue. So we're not here to judge our flexibility. We're just here to explore it. So while you're in this hold or gently moving back and forth, you can also extend through that right knee, send your right heel toward the ceiling. Just lengthening through the hamstrings on the right side. Make sure you're still incorporating the breath work, you're still breathing deep. And then slowly, mindfully, with control, bring that right foot back down to the mat and unravel. And then we're going to do that on the other side. So right ankle crosses over left knee. Start to open up through that right hip. Notice what you hear, feel. Just bring your awareness to that right hip. Breathing deep into that, letting your body know it's okay to relax. Finding what feels good. When you're feeling warmed up and open through that right hip, we'll do the same thing. Kick that left foot up. Interlace your fingertips behind that left thigh. Left knee is going to stay at 90 degrees. Left foot is dorsiflex, so nice and active through that leg. Press your right elbow into the inside of your right thigh and then just draw your hands and left thigh closer toward your face. just notice what's different on this side, if anything. Again, stay synced up with the breath, deepening the breath. Finding what feels good, especially in that right hip. And then if you want to extend that left knee fully, send that left heel toward the ceiling. Just get a little stretch through that left hamstring. Pressing in with that right elbow into the right thigh. And when you've got what you need there, you can release both feet to the ground and unravel. This time we'll walk that right foot into the center of the mat and take the left leg folded completely over the right. So you can send your hands out left to right or put both elbows to 90 degrees with the back of your hands facing the ground and the palms facing the ceiling, aka cactus arms. And then just pressing with that right heel, shift your hips slightly to the left and let your legs roll to the right. So try to keep your rear delts pinned to the mat. So you're getting a twist through the spine. Also maybe a stretch through that left glute. Working towards keeping that left shoulder really anchored toward the floor. And if it's easier to just extend the elbows out in like a T shape, you can do that. And then we'll roll back up, unravel, and do the same thing on the other side. So left hand comes roughly to the middle of the mat. Find your T shape with your arms or your cactus arms. Right leg crosses over the left. Press into that left heel. Shift your hips slightly to the right. And then just let your legs fall to the left. Remember, you're keeping your shoulders pinned toward the ground. It's okay if they don't get there. Just acknowledge that. Enjoying the deepness of your breath, noticing what you're feeling, and rolling it back up through center. So you can go ahead and unravel. I am going to kick my feet up toward the ceiling and roll up my back all the way up to sitting. You can get there however you want to. And if it's uncomfortable to sit cross-legged, you can sit any way that is comfortable for you, including just on your knees if that feels good, or with your legs out in front. So once you get to a comfortable sitting position, try to anchor through those sits bones, start to feel nice and grounded, drop in here, and see how quickly you can come to stillness, both physically and mentally. Focus on the depth of your breath. If it feels good, you can bring your palms together at the heart. Just dropping in, trying to quiet the mind, trying to be present. When you're ready, you can rest your hands on your knees or wherever feels comfortable, and we're going to start by going through some very gentle neck rotations. So I'm just going to draw small circles with my nose in a clockwise direction to start. Just very gently expanding your range of motion, noticing what you hear, what you feel. Staying synced up with the breath and allowing your body to move in any way that is organic to you. So just listen to the signals that you're getting. Acknowledge and send the signals back that it's okay to relax through the neck, through the shoulders. So have a nice grounded posture through the hips, sitting up nice and tall. And staying synced up with the breath. So just notice what's going on in the neck, the traps, if anything. You might want to check out your range straight up and straight down. So just shaking your head yes, very gently, very mindfully, tucking the chin at the bottom. Or maybe left to right, checking out your range of motion there today. And finding what feels good. So stay synced up with the breath. We'll stay here for a couple more breaths just to explore. Check out any sticking points, any pain points. Try to listen to what's going on there. All right, when you feel good, take your time getting there. You can come back to center. And we'll do my favorite trap stretch, starting by bringing your right palm up towards me, then out to the right. Lower that down to about where your hips are, and then lower your left ear over your left shoulder. And again, you can rock back and forth through the neck, just really gently. Notice what you feel in there. And if it's helpful, you can draw small circles with that right hand. Just making that connection all the way through the traps. Also stretching through the forearms, so keep your fingers flipped up. And if you want a little more intensity, you can bring that left hand to the right ear and just rest it gently on your head without pushing or pulling. Just kind of let gravity add a little more tension. Just breathing into that, noticing what you feel. Trying to stay grounded through the hips, trying to stay connected to the breath. And when you feel good on that side, take your time getting there. Slowly come back to center, palms together at the heart. You can close your eyes if it feels good. Breathe deep and just take a second. Just feel the blood coming back, feel those endorphins. One more deep breath, full exhale. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. So left palm comes out, facing me. And then out to your left. Lower that down to about hip height. Make sure your fingers are still flipped up. You're still stretching through the forearm. And then lower that right ear over the right shoulder. Maybe draw small circles with that left palm. Maybe find a little organic movement in the head and the neck. If you need a little more, bring that right hand to the left ear and just let it rest gently. Try to be mindful of the breath. Try not to hold your breath, even if you feel some intense sensations. Also, always come back to that inner dialogue. Remember, the way that you talk to yourself is important, especially in challenging poses. All right, so take your time getting there, but when you feel good, you can come back to center, palms together at the heart. And we're gonna interlace the fingertips and just start rolling through some wrist mobility. So find what feels good in there. Break up that fascia. Move in ways that your wrists don't typically move. Just be gentle and mindful, present in that. You can press the palms together to oppose each other and bring your fingertips toward your chest. or roll away from the chest. Find what feels good in the wrists and the forearms. And then when you come back to center, interlace your fingertips. This time you're going to press away from your chest, keeping your hands up at shoulder height. And then once you are at full extension at the elbows, you're going to press beyond that, arching through the upper back, bringing the upper ribs inward to meet the back body, and just relaxing the head and neck. So you can let your chin tuck in toward your chest, really stretching through the upper back. Think cat pose. And we'll bring the hands all the way up and overhead. Big stretch. Once you get there, press away a little further. Try to reach through both sides of the body, really elongating through the spine. Take one more big inhale, reach. And on your next exhale, you're going to melt down slowly to the right. Your left hand will come to the top of your right knee. Right hand plants behind you. Sit up, lift, and twist. And then look over your right shoulder, if that's in your range of motion today. You can also explore any easy organic movement in the neck. Sitting up nice and tall, wringing out through the spine, and just exploring what's going on in the traps. When you've got what you need there, slowly, mindfully, with control, come back to center. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. So come back to palms together at the heart, interlace fingertips, press away. This time see if you can find a little more stretch through the upper back, bringing the upper abdominals in to meet the back body, pressing away. Pretend there's like a pane of glass and you're pressing away from it. And just let your head and neck relax, chin comes to the chest. When you're ready, press the palms all the way up and overhead toward the ceiling, really reaching. Reach a little higher. And melt it down to the left. So right hand comes to the top of left knee, left hand comes behind you, plant that palm, sit up, lift, and twist. And look over your left shoulder. Same thing on this side. Notice what's going on in your neck. And when you got what you need, you can bring it back to center. So if you're not sitting cross-legged, you will need to sit cross-legged for this next part. So Carl, if you want to log off, that's fine, or wait it out. We'll be moving on to other poses later. But from here, you're going to come to a comfortable seat, cross the legs. Whichever leg goes in front naturally is fine. That's where we're going to start. And we'll start by stretching all the way up and overhead, palms facing one another. Again, try to stretch longer and longer through both sides of the body. Pretend like you're reaching for something, you're climbing up a ladder, something to that effect. And then palms facing me, you'll melt downward and forward. Just bring your palms all the way to the ground. Wherever they land, they land. Let the head and neck relax. Shake out your hair if it feels good. And just start breathing deep into the low back. Just observing what you feel here. Try to let the shoulders relax. Make sure you're not holding any tension anywhere. You're grounded through the sits bones. Take a couple more really deep breaths there. And when you're ready, one at a time, you're going to walk your hands off to the left. Maybe framing that left knee with both of your arms, and then same thing, melt your head and neck down. I just put my forehead on my knee. And you should be feeling an intense stretch in the hip of whatever leg is in front. So whatever your dominant leg is, you're probably feeling a stretch on that side. If you want a little more in that stretch, you can walk your right fingertips a little bit further away from your body. And incorporate the breath, breathe deep into that. Giving your body the signal it's okay to relax. Notice if you're holding in the glutes or that right hip, try to relax. Just deepening your breath and noticing what you feel. When you're ready, you can walk the hands back through center, slowly, with control, and all the way over to the right. Same thing on the other side. You can frame that right knee with your arms, let your head and neck just relax. Notice what you're feeling, bring your awareness there, try not to be overwhelmed by it. Always deepening your breath. If you want a little more intensity, you can walk those left fingertips out a little bit further. Staying relaxed through that left hip, that left glute. Breathing deep into the low back, the left side body, the left hip. And then slowly with control, walk the hands back through center. And while your arms are extended, you're going to plant the sits bones, starting with the tailbone, slowly roll up, articulating through the spine, nice and slow, like you're moving through water. Stacking the spine, sitting up nice and tall, coming all the way up. Roll your shoulders back, chest open, gaze comes up. All right, and then we're gonna do the same thing with the alternate leg in front. So if your right leg was in front, put your left in front. It's gonna feel a little unnatural, so just take a second, get grounded and stable. And when you're ready, you know what to do. Palms come up overhead, facing each other, reach, stretch, elongate through the spine, and then palms facing me, melt all the way down. Let your head and neck just relax. Notice what you're feeling. Breathing deep into the hips and low back. And then when you're ready, walk the hands off to the right. You're gonna frame that right knee first this time. Let your head and neck relax there. Arms are nice and long. You can walk those left fingertips out if you want a little more. Just take a couple of deep breaths. Make sure you relax through that left hip, that left glute. And when you got what you need there, walk your hands back through center, slowly, mindfully, with control, all the way over to the left. Same thing, framing that left knee, melt your head down to wherever it goes. Relax the head and neck, stay anchored through the hips, relax through the right hip flexors, the right glutes. Try to deepen your breath into that right hip, that right side body. And walk your right fingertips out a little bit further if you need to. When you're ready, walk back through center and slowly roll up. Try to roll up a little slower this time. Try to really be mindful of that articulation through the spine, planting the sits bones, planting the tailbone. Coming up one vertebra at a time, opening up through the shoulders, opening up through the chest. Gaze comes up. And then we're gonna do one of my favorite stretches. Okay, so for this, you're gonna bring your right hand to the mat, fingertips facing away from you. And you're gonna slowly start to slide that right hand away from the body while staying anchored through that left hip. So we're bringing forearm toward the mat while staying stable, staying grounded through the left hip. If your forearm doesn't get there and you're just at this bent elbow, that's totally fine. So find what works for you. Notice what your body's telling you. When you do get down to wherever your range of motion is, make sure that you're still grounded through the hips. You're still anchored through the hips. You're able to relax through that those left hip flexors and glutes. And when you feel stable and grounded, you're going to take the left fingertips behind the left ear, reach all the way up and over, so that left hand is kind of hovering over the right. So once you feel grounded, you can start by taking that left palm and pretend there's an imaginary surface in front of you and just sliding that left palm forward and then back to the starting position. Just noticing what you feel there in the shoulder, in the back, in the left side body. Trying to stay anchored through the hips, trying to stay relaxed through the hips. Trying to protect the integrity of the neck. Try not to let your neck hang down, which I always do. And then next time you come back around, if you want to try to flip that left palm toward the ceiling and look up, open up through the chest. Trying to stay anchored through that left hip. Big side body stretch. Swing it back around across that invisible surface. Find what feels good. Staying relaxed through those left hip flexors, left glutes. Anchored through that left hip. And always deepening the breath. All right, take a couple more breaths here if you need it. When you're ready, you'll slowly press back up, back to center. And again, bring palms together, close your eyes. Press your palms against each other so you feel your elbows opposing. Really stiffening up through the upper back, kind of rolling your shoulders back a little bit. Breathe deep. Notice the sensations. And when you're ready, you can take it to the other side. So left hand comes to the mat, fingertips pointing away from you, and you're just going to slide that left hand away from your body, anchoring through the right hip. So try to bring that left forearm, left elbow toward the mat. It's okay if it doesn't get there, not a big deal. If you're here, that's totally fine. More importantly is to take your time, make sure you feel anchored through the hips. You're able to relax through the right hip. And when you're ready, take your right fingertips behind the right ear, reach all the way up and over. So right hand is hovering relatively close to above the left. So again, assess, take a second, make sure you're still synced up with the breath, make sure you're still anchored through the hips. And if it feels good, slide that right hand forward, out in front of you, like there's an invisible surface. And back to its starting point. Sync up with your breath if you're able to. Remember to protect the integrity of the neck as a beautiful extension of the spine. Just notice what you feel in the right side body, the right upper back. If it feels good, on your next time around, you can open up that right palm toward the ceiling, open up through the right chest, look up. And maybe bring it back around. So just take a couple breaths here. Find what feels good for you. Check in with that positive inner dialogue. And when you're ready, bring it back to center. Take a second, feel those endorphins, feel those sensations, feel good about what you're doing. Then we're gonna roll forward onto all fours. So just come to all fours on the center of your mat. And before we get into some more hip stuff, we're going to thread the needle for a little upper back stretch. So I'll start on my left side. So you're going to plant your right palm in the center of the mat, or center to where underneath your chest. And then you're going to drag those left fingertips along the inside edge of that right arm across your chest and open up toward the ceiling. Big twist. Look up at your hand. Notice what you're feeling. Get a deep breath. And slowly we're going to bring that left hand down, thread the needle. So come behind the right arm. Bring that all the way down toward the mat. You're coming down on your left triceps, your left rear delt, and then extending that left arm at the elbow, so palms facing up. Your right hand can go just underneath your elbow to kind of prop you, and I'm going to show you on the other side for a demo. So your left hand can come underneath your left shoulder. I'm sorry, now I'm saying the reverse side. Whatever palm is planted, keep it under your elbow or your shoulder for stability. You can also extend that arm upward toward the top corner of your mat. And this stretch will feel a little bit different for everybody, especially if you have like issues in the shoulder or hypermobility in the shoulder. So find a hand placement that works for you, that gives you that stretch through the upper back. You want to try to keep your hips square. So kind of press into one side or the other, depending what side you're on. Notice what's going on there. If you want a little bit of a deeper twist, you can bring that palm that's on the mat to the low back and roll through that shoulder just to open up the chest a little bit. If you're super flexible, you can also bring that hand all the way around to the inside of your thigh. And just breathe into that. When you've got what you need, that palm that's planted, bring it back underneath that bent elbow and slowly press up out to unravel. Just be really safe and mindful about that. So we'll do the same thing on the other side. This time I'll call it with the correct side. So we're going to leave the left hand in the middle of the mat, plant that palm. Right fingertips trace the inside edge of that left arm and across your chest, open up toward the ceiling, look up. Notice what you're feeling in that twist. And then bring the right hand all the way under behind the left arm, coming down on the the right triceps, the right rear delts. And then just using that left palm to kind of leverage and stretch through the upper back. Find what works for you. If you want to extend that left palm toward the top left corner of your mat, that might feel good. And then just press into that right hip. Make sure your hips are still square or relatively square. So your toes are stretched out. You can press into the tops of your feet. Breathing into that. Notice what's different on this side, if anything. And if it feels good to bring that left hand to the low back, you can do that. Or maybe even twist. Take the bind all the way behind your back to that top of the right thigh. Just find what feels good, especially in the upper back. And then when you're ready, you can slide that left palm back underneath the left shoulder, press up to unravel. And from tabletop, we'll take a second in extended child's pose. So bring your big toes in to touch. Extend your knees as wide as the mat, and then just send your hips backward, extending through the arms, pressing into your fingertips. Melt your heart and your forehead all the way down to the mat. Take a second to breathe deep. Notice what you feel, notice your inner dialogue. you're ready, press back up to tabletop. So from tabletop, we're gonna just stretch through the calves a little bit. So I'm gonna keep my right knee where it is. Just extend that left leg out long, and then really just press through that left heel, maybe roll back and forth across that left foot a little bit. Just noticing what you feel through the back of the leg, especially in the calves, in the calf. When you're ready, bring it in. We're going to do the same thing on the right. So extend that right leg out long. Spike the right heel toward the back edge of your mat. Pressing into that, maybe rolling through the foot a little bit. And when you're ready, bring it back to tabletop. Okay, so we're gonna do another little hip opener into a lizard variation. So I'm gonna start on my right, so hopefully you can see what I'm doing. But from tabletop, we're going to pick that right heel up toward the ceiling. And then you're just gonna start to draw big circles with that right knee, just kind of opening up through that right hip. You can go in one direction or the other, whatever feels good for you. Kind of opening up, noticing what you feel. Try to go a little bit bigger each time with your circles. And when you're ready, we're going to bring that right foot to the outside of your palms. So your right foot, your toes are going to spill off the mat a little bit. They're like kind of at an angle. Your left leg stays behind you, and if it feels good, just walk that left leg back a little bit further. So this is the beginning of your lizard variation, which for me is super intense, so just find what works for you in this. The goal is to come down toward your forearms or all the way down to the mat. I'm not that flexible, but there's a few ways that you can get into that. So if you're in this beginner's variation, you can just start by bending the elbows, let your head and neck relax. Notice what you feel in the right hip. And you can just let that right knee fall outward. If it does so, that's totally fine. Other ways to get deeper into this lizard variation are to walk the left hand off the mat and just kind of let your upper body lower a little closer to the mat. You can also just stay where you're at with both palms planted, elbows bent as they naturally do. Or you can walk out, kind of walk your torso out to the left so it's at a perpendicular angle to the lower body. And just see what you find in there. So any of those variations are fine, just to open up through that right hip. So just notice what works for you, try a couple different things, or if you feel something great, take a few deep breaths, breathe into that. Try to acknowledge what's going on in that hip without being overwhelmed by it. And when you're ready, slowly, mindfully press up. Bring that right knee back to tabletop. If you want to take a second just to press back through the hips or draw circles with the hips, it might feel good. Reverse it, find what feels good. And then we'll come back to tabletop and do the same thing on the left. So from tabletop, we're going to start with those big hip circles on the left. So you can kick that left heel up toward the ceiling and then just start to draw big circles, opening up through that hip. Find what feels good. Maybe try the other direction. Try to go a little bit wider. Notice what you feel, notice what you hear, if anything. And when you're ready, bring that left foot up to the outside of the left hand. Let your left toes spill off the mat. So my left heel stays on the mat, my left toes go off. And then if you want to walk that right knee back a little bit further, you can do that. Just notice what you feel in your hip flexors and let your body dictate. So again, from here, we want to melt down a little bit, really pressing into that left hip. If it feels good to walk your hands out and kind of go perpendicular to your lower body, you can do that. If it feels good to leave your left hand where it is and send your right arm out wide to go a little bit deeper toward the mat, you can try that. And if it feels good just to be at full extension at the elbows, I would say just don't lock your elbows, allow the weight of gravity to pull your head and neck downward. But if that left knee wants to roll open to the left, that's totally fine. Just listen to your body. Take a couple more deep breaths into that. Try to acknowledge what you're feeling. Bring your awareness there. Don't get overwhelmed. And when you're ready, you can unravel, come all the way back to all fours. Then we're gonna curl the toes under, send the hips up high and back for your first downward dog. So you might wanna rotate the hands outward toward the left and right edges of your mat. Let your elbow creases face the top edge of your mat. Toes are facing forward, heels are coming toward the mat, but maybe not touching. And then you just want to work to engage the abdomen to really bring your front body in to meet the back body while letting your head and neck relax. So go ahead and put a little, well first let's walk through the feet a little bit. Feel free to rock the hips left and right if it feels good. You might be really stiff through the hamstrings. That's fine. Just find any organic movement that feels good for you. And then next time your left leg is straight, press that heel down to the mat and leave your right knee bent a little bit. So leave that knee a little loose, plant that left heel, and then turn to look underneath your left shoulder. Good. If you feel grounded, balanced, and stable, you can sink your weight into that left palm and just bring that right hand to the outside of the left calf. Again, looking underneath your armpit, underneath your shoulder. And when you feel good there, bring that right palm back to the earth. We're going to do that on the other side. So plant that right heel, try to bring it down toward the mat. You can have as generous a bend in the left knee as you need. And then if you feel balanced, sink into that right hand. Take your left hand to the outside of the right calf and just look underneath your right armpit at your bookshelf. Alright, when you're ready, come back to your downward dog. We're going to roll forward into a plank. So really articulating through the spine until you reach full extension of the hips. And we're going to do that a couple of times. So sync up with your breath. Send the hips up and back to that downward dog. And then roll back forward into that plank pose. One more time, up and back, heels toward the floor, and then forward to the plank. Come to that plank position and hold. And then we'll lower all the way to the belly. So extend your toes out long. You're just going to bring your forearms forward, fingertips toward the top edge of your mat. And just take a second to sit up for Sphinx pose. So legs are extended long, glutes are relaxed. You have a micro bend in the lower back. Just bringing your gaze up, rolling the shoulders back a little bit. And then we'll come back to the belly. You can rest your forehead on your right palm. And then you're just going to put your left arm out to the left at a 90-degree angle at the elbow. So kind of like half cactus arms. So from there, I'm going to leave that left palm planted on the ground. And I'm going to roll to my left side to stack the hips and knees. So I'm going to use my right hand as a lever to kind of press me into that. You should get a pretty intense stretch through that left anterior deltoid, the left pectorals. You can move your hand placement a bit. Find what works best for you, what feels good for you. And if you want a little more intensity, you can take that top leg, that top foot, bring it behind you toward the floor. Just be really gentle. Notice your range of motion, listen to your body. Breathe into that. And if your foot's behind you, bring it back to stack on top of the knees. We'll roll back to the belly. And we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. So 90 degrees and that right elbow, right palm comes to the earth. You're gonna use your left hand approximately next to your rib cage or your chest to press into your body. Roll to the right hip, stack the hips. And just notice what you feel through that right, through the right pecs, through that right anterior deltoid, and maybe anywhere else. You can take that left foot behind you to touch the ground if it feels good. And get a little more intensity in the stretch. And when you're ready, stack the knees if they're not already, roll back to your belly. We will press up to plank and then all the way back up to downward dog. And then this time walk your hands up so you're in a standing forward fold. So you're full extension at the knees without locking them. Just let your head and neck hang. Shake your hair out if it feels good. Maybe let the fingertips drag along the mat, just sway left and right, feel that stretch through the hamstrings. And then we're gonna walk the feet as wide as the mat. You might need to come to the center of the mat for this. Again, let your toes spill off the mat, heels stay on. And from that forward fold, you're just gonna flex the knees, start to drop the hips back, come down to that yogi squat. So elbows are pressing away from the knees, palms come to the heart. You see how quickly you can come to stillness, physically and mentally. Notice what you feel. Dialogue. Notice the quality of your breath. And when you're ready, we're going to gently release the hips to the floor, send the legs out long, coming to sitting. And then we'll do one sitting forward fold before we go back to Savasana. So you can either fully extend at the knees, reach up overhead, and then fold forward, reaching your hands beyond the feet, or maybe just theoretically beyond the feet, relaxing the head, neck, and shoulders. Or if the hamstrings are really tight and you want to focus more on the lower back, you can bend those knees slightly or as much as you need to, and same thing, reach up overhead, holding forward, sinking down, relaxing the head and neck. When you're ready, you can roll back up to that staff pose, that sitting position. Clap the hands together in front, interlace the fingertips, and we're going to slowly articulate through the spine, coming all the way down to lying. So try to go as slow as you can. Try not to drop to the floor. Maybe you do, that's fine too. And when you get to your back, just let the palms open left to right at the sides of your body. Relax everything. And drop in again. Notice your breath. Notice what you feel. Try to come to stillness physically and mentally. And this is the time where you get to just enjoy the nutrients of your practice, enjoy those endorphins, feel good about what you did for yourself, for your mind and body. Take 5 more deep breaths. Deepening the breath, relaxing a little bit more. Try to bring that same level of awareness and self-love to the rest of your day. We recognize that for some, yoga is a spiritual practice, and for all of us, yoga is a community. So thank you so much for joining me today and letting me lead you in your practice. If you feel good about it, bring your palms together to rest at the third eye. Take a couple more deep breaths. We'll see each other next time. Have a fantastic day. Namaste.